Seth, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
No, it's a pleasure, mate. We've been hoping to get this in for a while, so it's great to finally meet you and have a bit of a chat. So yeah, welcome. For the casuals that are maybe watching that aren't familiar with you, a quick intro might be really helpful, mate. And just tell us a little bit about your position, obviously with B Team and CJI, please.
Yeah, so I'm a co-founder and the effective CEO of B Team Jiujitsu here in Austin, Texas. I'm the president of the Craig Jones Invitational and also the founder and president of the Fair Fight Foundation, which is our nonprofit that hosts the Craig Jones Invitational and does some other projects around the world, that we're working to grow.
Nice. So you're essentially the brains that behind the madness that is Craig Jones, then, by the sound of it.
Well, I don't know about the brains, but I'm an execution guy. So Craig has great ideas. He's a marketing genius, clearly, an elite athlete, and I have experience of building teams and a corporate background that enables me to kind of execute some of the ideas that he puts in place. So he comes up with the ideas, and I figure out a way to make it happen.
Nice,
nice, yeah.
Good team. And I think you do have a jiu-jitsu background as well, right? So you're not just a business guy, you are a grappler as well?
Yeah, that's right. I started late in life. I started jiu-jitsu around 24. I'm 45, so I started jiu-jitsu in my 20s, but I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu underneath Hedges Leverett in the Hoyler Gracie Association. Went all the way through black belt in the gi, and then 4 years ago decided to ditch the pajamas and go no gi because I think that's the future of the sport. And also, as you get older, I feel you're kind of told a tale that the no gi is more dangerous. I think the gi is more dangerous, so it causes a little bit more friction and more tension. So I feel much better, and it's more loose. And again, I think the future of the sport. So that's why I wanted to pursue just no gi fully.
I think we show our age because I'm not far off your age as well. Well, when we say we got into it late at 24, that feels quite young for when we started, I think. But of course, these days you've got these kids coming up through the ranks.
No, I got Nicky Ryan, who's not even 24. And, I got Joseph Chen came in the room at like a teenager. And I was like, immediately, I hate him because he's so good. And he's, he's young. And you're like, man, I hadn't even started jiu-jitsu and he's forgot more jiu-jitsu than I'll ever know. It's just crazy the level. It's exciting to see in our sport too that, now kids are starting at a younger age. I have sons starting at a young age, just to see the evolution of the sport and how good people will be because, everyone's just getting better year over year. So yeah, man, it's wild.
Yeah, man, it's definitely going that way for sure. And at 24, what kind of was the catalyst for you starting jiu-jitsu at that point?
To be honest is, I grew up, I had to work my whole life. So I wasn't playing sports growing up. I had a different kind of upbringing. So I always wanted to do individual sports. I messed around with some little bit of combat sports, martial arts. But when I got into college, I started working for a family in Montana. It became like an adopted family to me. And every single one of the sons was like a state champion, national champion wrestler. And the Cowboys, man, and they, just go get in bar fights, didn't even drink just to be who's toughest kind of deal. And I was like, man, I want to wrestle. And they just I was 20 years old at the time. They just started laughing like, you can't go back to college and wrestle. You got to start at 5, it's not work. We appreciate your thoughts. And then a couple of years later in college, a friend of mine just was like, hey, I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu. I'm like, what's that? He's like, come with me. And I walked in and I was like, wait, this is like wrestling with submissions and you can start from scratch. And I was all in. So yeah. I think I started around 22, 23, dipped my toe in and took a couple classes. And then I was an international business major in college. And so I had lived abroad. And then right after college, I decided to move to Brazil. And I was like, you know what? Being a BRIC country, I thought there'd be opportunities there. And I was like, the easiest way to make friends and perfect my language skills would be just through sports. So I started training jiu-jitsu under Carlos Gracie Jr. before they brought Gracie Baja here to the United States. And then it just kind of evolved from there. Next thing you know, you're just addicted. And then you just feel like you have a superpower, it was still back in early 2000s. So I'd come back home and just roll up my big friends who thought they were tough and was like, you get a superpower, you get a taste of it and you want to keep going. So yeah, that's how I got into jiu-jitsu. And that's kind of my background.
That's really cool. That is really cool, mate. What was it like out in Brazil? Was it good?
Oh man, it was the dream. I was 25 years old. I worked and saved up a bunch of money. I was living on the beach in Barra da Tijuca across from Praia do Pepe, which is the best beach in Rio. There's no gringos there. And I was just training jiu-jitsu and living that Playboy lifestyle, it was a dream, it's a false reality, my visa blocked me from getting a job. So I was just literally just training jiu-jitsu and going out at night and doing all the things a young man would do.
Sounds like a dream, mate.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
And when did you get your black belt?
I got my black belt. So when I came back, obviously I started my corporate career and I was traveling like 25 weeks a year. I worked for Dell Computers for a long time and then a startup. And so when you're traveling 25 weeks a year, you're just coming back. So I was that off and on hobbyist. So I didn't get my black belt till 2020. So right when I turned 40, so it took me the 15-year route, not the route these kids get today where they get their black belts super quick. I was on that old school Brazilian model of like, oh, it's going to take you 10 years minimum. That's kind of how I came up. And despite my appearance, I'm not an elite athlete and super athletic, I was a slow learner, so it took me a minute.
Mate, you are super athletic. I've seen you on that Cameron Shane, mate. With that Cameron Shane doing the front flips and that.
Yeah, I almost broke my neck doing that, but I got it done. Thanks to Shane for coaching me through,
Mate, it was so fun, wasn't it? The whole room was just anarchy, wasn't it?
Yeah, man, it was crazy because I was in training and I look over and I see him rolling. And I was like mid-roll, I'm like, wait, I'm taking someone's back. And I'm like, is that Cameron Shane? And so right after the round, I walked up to him and I was like, yo, I'm a fan. Like, would you come back tomorrow and teach a class? And he was like, oh, I'd love to. And man, it was just like the room just loved it. It was like super cool. And then we see him. He's like, how many of you guys are over 40? And I'm like the only one raising my hand. And
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he was the only one, weren't you, over 40?
Yeah, I'm the only one.
But it was a good point though, wasn't it? And I've used that point a few times. Like there was literally like I'm 35 and I was in the room and I was like one of like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 people, and then everyone else in their 20s and younger. And I was like, fuck. There was like 50 people in the room on the day, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a ton of people on that day. Yeah,
loads.
Usually in those comp classes, our noon classes are the biggest classes at B Team. Obviously, a tourist hub, everyone wants to come in, and we have that vibe that everyone's welcome. It doesn't matter what you are, just as long as you're cool on the mat. So in our noon classes, there's always 40 to 50 people coming through to train and be a part of the community. But yeah, it was super cool. And to your point, like, in our room specifically, like 30's old. So like, there's a bunch of young killers in there now. So the days of trying to prove you're the best for me are way past. I'm just trying to continue to learn, have fun, stay in shape, and know that I could smoke a casual on the street. That's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that one, mate. So obviously you got your black belt. You're a serious business guy at this point, and at some point you ran into Craig Jones. Where did you guys meet?
So we actually met in Puerto Rico. I'm born and raised in Austin, Texas. I lived here, but I moved out to San Diego for a little bit. Thought it was going to be 2 years. It ended up being 9 years. And I wanted to move back to Texas during COVID time. I wanted to like raise my family and my sons in Texas. And so I was coming back to Texas from California. But due to COVID, the whole world was. So it took me a minute. So I had this gap of about 3 to 6 months on this house. And so I just wanted to leave California to get out of there pretty quick during the COVID times. And I had an opportunity to go down to Puerto Rico. A friend of mine had moved down there for like the tax purposes of like Act 60. And coincidentally, he was living in the same community as like Mo Jassam and had run into Gordon and John and everyone. And he started training in the room. It was like, hey, a guy my age, not a pro, but a black belt in jiu-jitsu, it's not a threat to taking someone's position. They needed bodies, right? Because they were just all down there training at that time. And so I went down there to visit, and I went into the room, and it was the same thing. It was like, hey, you can welcome if you want to come train here. So we just took a little sabbatical. I moved down to Puerto Rico for about 3.5 months, it ended up being. And just that's where I met the guys, met Craig. He was kind of like in the corner of my room, and he was a little bit older, at 30 at the time compared to the rest of the guys, and also shares my kind of sense of humor of talking shit nonstop. So, we automatically had banter. And then he left to do the UFC show. And then when I was coming back, we met up in Austin, and then I knew he didn't like Puerto Rico and didn't want to go back. And I was, establishing myself back in Austin, and just kind of went from there. He decided like, hey, I'm going to come here no matter what after ADCC. And so I was like, kind of formulated from there. And then, turn of events. And then when he decided to, go his own way, it was just like, hey man, I have this space. Let's kind of work it out to get you through ADCC and then see what goes beyond that. And then, the yin and yang relationship worked pretty well. And the rest is history, got through ADCC 2022 And then we just continued on B team.
Nice, man. And tell us about that. So how did those sort of initial conversations to create B team come about, and talk us through that process of bringing that together?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are part of an elite team. I was on the outside. I was just a training partner. So I didn't have the insight to the inner workings of what was going on. I just know that they weren't going to stay in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, as beautiful it is, it's not the most organizing place. It's rolling blackouts. There's some challenges there. So I think them having a facility there was a lofty dream and a goal that wasn't coming to fruition. I had left the traditional Jiu-Jitsu association space as in May of 21. So I just wanted to do media and Jiu-Jitsu in Austin. Jiu-Jitsu has always been a passion project for me. I had my corporate career. It was just, I always wanted to have a space in Austin because that's my home. And I always wanted to promote and help Jiu-Jitsu grow in my hometown. And with Flo Grappling being here, that was the heyday when they started doing the W&O events. And so when I left the association and still had the space, I wanted to do some kind of media or seminar tour space to bring people to Austin, because the W&Os were actually really consistent at that time with Flo Grappling. And there's not too many shows in town, right? So I was like, that's my home city. Let's do something like this. And then, they decided to, effectively, what the world knows, the team changed. And then me and Craig did a deal. He brought over the boys, and it was originally just, let's do this through ADCC. So that was the reason we created the blue belt and up only. It was, how do we high speed, a high level room to give these athletes the best opportunity to have the best training partners to prepare them for 2022, because it was less than a year out, right? It was I think we formed officially in August, and then, ADCC was September. So it's just 1 year out of training. And that's how we kind of structured it, and then made it kind of just a high level room. And then, tourists could drop through and come in and get to see the inner workings. And because of the media idea, Craig really had the idea of let's do a YouTube. Let's do content to kind of show what it looks like to be in a high level room, because myself included, who's traveled the world and trained Jiu-Jitsu, I was just like everyone else. I was a super fan of John and the room and the DDS that he created. And when I got to go to Puerto Rico and experience it, it was oh, wow, this is different. I've never seen someone give a safety protocol. I've never seen a no time limit rounds. I've never seen this level of instruction. And I think it was the idea that Craig had was let's show the world what the room is like, and also show that it can be fun. Jiu-Jitsu is hard enough, right? To go every day and get smashed, but to show the banter and the personalities, and also control the narrative. If you have to rely on other media outlets to promote you, then it's really kind of hard to keep yourself, financially stable, because these guys only at that time were making money from competing, which weren't very often. And as you guys know, the money in the last 4 years has been growing, but it was not much back then. And the only other way was seminars or DVDs through BJJ Fanatics. And so it was really a good way for them to continue to keep their brand high, where people are consistently seeing them online, so they can continue to sell DVDs, sell seminars, and then control the narrative of their own brand to be more marketable for organizations and events to compete in. And that was Craig's idea of hey, control his narrative, create a brand, create a following, so that, ultimately grow the sport and also make it more enticing for sponsors, brands, and organizations to pay more money because you have a bigger following, right? And also DVD sales. I mean, that's the big thing for these guys initially.
I was going to ask about the social media thing, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because it's definitely a stroke of genius. I think, what you say, we've been training for a while, sort of 15, 20 years. It was a black art for a long time, wasn't it? Certainly with the Brazilians, where they wouldn't share technique to try and even get an instruction, or you'd be out of books and stuff. So now to have that room available sort of online is really refreshing, but also I think it's obviously made B Team be incredibly successful, in addition to obviously the success of the athletes. So I think it's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's also a testament to what we kind of initially opened with, the level of athletes growing. It's the access to information, right? Like you said, when I came up, if you cross-trained, you're a Krianchi. If you went someplace else, if you're doing foot locks back then, it was oh, or wrist locks, that's a bitch move. You don't do that. But now with the internet and YouTube and instructionals, these people have access to information, and they can just absorb it. And I use Joseph Chen as the best example. He was by himself at his home in China, ripping off DVDs and training with his friends, and got to an extreme level, and then came into our room and from day one was competing with the best guys in the room as like a teenager. And you were like, how did you get so good? And it's literally just studying DVDs on them, online. And even Craig, the same thing, comes from Australia. Obviously he had Kit and Lachlan as partners in coming up, but, I think he's expressed, he was a purple belt before he ever got to train with like a black belt, but he was doing the same thing. Yeah, it's crazy. So he was studying and learning online and really focusing the energy and effort of like off the mat of studying so that he could maximize the efficiency of his time when he actually got to train. And you're seeing that more and more with athletes around that are really like doing a lot more studying and figuring out how they can maximize their training on the mat. And I think that's through social media, through BJJ fanatics and just YouTube in general. Now, like you can learn so much, and some of the information out there, like, the DVDs that come out and the instructionals from the best guys in the world can really just elevate your game. I think that's one of the things that's so unique and beautiful about Jiu-Jitsu still. It feels big to us because, we're in the scene, we do Jiu-Jitsu, we're black belts, but on the global scale, on the world scale, it's not that big. But when you look at it like that, it's like, it's the only sport that if you want to go train with the best guy in the world, you can go do that. Like, you can't go play basketball with LeBron James just because you want to go take a practice. Like, that's impossible, right? You can't just go play with an NFL player or go play like kick footy with like Ronaldo or like Messi. But you can literally fly and go train with Craig, Nikki. You can go and you can access these people. You can literally go learn from the best people in the world and potentially train with the best people in the world by just putting yourself in that situation. I think that's something that's so unique, but also a testament to the empathy of our sport, because hopefully it gets to a point where it's big money, bigger eyes, bigger things. And then it's, like normal big money sports are. But, I think that's the real unique thing now. So I encourage people, like, if you're into jiu-jitsu and you want to train with your heroes, make the effort to go get out there and do it, because it might not be that way for too long.
Yeah. I think the introduction to UFC now is going to change that quite a lot. I think just with contracts and different things like that. And obviously with money as well, that'll make it more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like, if we're helping grow jiu-jitsu and more people start watching jiu-jitsu and they can understand the format and we kind of all unify on like something that is a product that can be digested by people who don't participate in it and make it intriguing for them, that's what's really going to separate us and like help grow the sport. There's MLB, NFL, NBA. There's so many people that are diehards for teams, for athletes that have never played the sport. And that's the difference that we have in jiu-jitsu, is that, 9 out of 10 people that watch jiu-jitsu do jiu-jitsu. And we need those other people that have no interest in training or haven't started training yet to be intrigued and watched. Similar to, MMA, most MMA fans have never been in a fight in their life. It's I just see red, bro, or I would just knock them out. Right? Like, those are the fans, right? So, we want those people to cross over. But even that is a challenge, I feel, because MMA fans are still booing grappling exchanges in the octagon, right? So, you kind of have this weird balance, so it's like you still need to kind of continue to grow grappling so people have a better understanding it, so they just don't see, why are they hugging, or like, why are they pushing up the cage? They just want to knock out, they can understand the art. So, I think that just comes with more exposure and more eyes on the sport. Yeah,
and I think we'll come on to CJI and the Craig Jones Invitational in a second, because I think you obviously have achieved a couple of things with that. Obviously, one is the fighter pay, and you've definitely
smashed that.
Yeah, you've made a real sort of change in the scene regarding that. But I think the other thing, and is the kind of lens to what you were just talking about, but obviously the event itself for a mainstream spectator, I think it's the first time, or one of the first times that I can recall, where I could show a non-jiu-jitsu person a match and they'd enjoy it.
Yeah.
And there were several, but obviously the final is the one that often people talk about with Tackett and Rotolo. So you've done great things there, mate. So take us back to the kind of beginnings of those conversations, and from your perspective, like how that came about and then putting that together?
Well, how CJI came together, that was like classic Craig manipulation to bait me into doing something that is just way out of scope and took years of my life away. It literally came in, everyone kind of knows the genesis. Craig was just in a position, the reigning number two-time number two, couldn't win the event, but had made it himself in the sport through other endeavors and sponsors and podcasting, everything else, that it just wasn't financially worth it for him to put in the time from a camp for the pay at that time, right? And so he just simply was like, hey, I love it. I think it's great. I think people should go do it. But unless the pay goes, then I'll go. And that kind of turned into the initials of this kind of rivalry. And then it turned into, you know what? I'll just do a seminar, raise money, and then I'm going to go to ADCC and hand it out to the day one losers that don't get anything and give back to them because they're not going to get anything and they put in this training camp. That's what I'm going to do. And then a friend, anonymous investor, was like, fuck that. I'll give you XYZ if you'll run an event on the same weekend as ADCC. And I got this late night text. They are out having a good time in Dubai. And I get this late night text. It's like total baiting that I just totally fell for. Like if I was a fish, I would have got caught. And it's like, yo, if you got $3 million, could you run an event on the same weekend as ADCC? And I'm like, bro, are you even serious right now? And he's like, I'm dead serious. And I'm like, yeah, we'll talk about it. And I was like, oh, these guys are just partying. This is just bullshit talk. And then, of course, it triggered me, my OCD brain. I'm like up all night, like, how can I do this? And then, I was like, oh, I'll wait. And then, 2 days later, I sent the text. I'm like, okay, how serious are we? Because I'll go straight OCD and lock myself in a room and figure this out if we're really going to do it. And I got the screenshot of the money and that's how serious. And it was like, game on, let's go. And so that was the genesis of it. Of how like we came up to do the event. And then it was, to bring more eyes ultimately. Like it's like Kendrick and Drake, dude. The rivalry elevates everybody, so we're fans of the sport first and foremost. It was about raising the level of the sport, raising fighter pay. We wanted to accomplish that goal. We did that goal, but it was also take inspiration from things that we had been around. Craig had grappled at Karate Combat and we were there. We're like, man, this is similar to what the ideal scenario would be for grappling, because we wanted to eliminate the biggest issues that we see across the board in all jiu-jitsu competitions, which is out of bounds and resets. Like how many collar tie matches can you push the guy out of the bounds? It's super annoying, right?
So boring, isn't it?
It's so boring. And even if you do jiu-jitsu in a cage, then you have static wall wrestling, which can be boring if you're not into that, right? Yeah. But the slanted, angled wall on the pit guaranteed a takedown and guaranteed action. And so we were like, we should use that. And then also that makes it a one singular focus mat. It's not like other organizations where there's like 8 matches going on at the same time. It's like, man, if you're a super fan, you might be missing it and you can't concentrate. And then it's like, you go back. We wanted to make it really about the athletes and spectators. So having that one unified competition ring was super important. And then Craig was, the guy behind it was just like, hey man, we really need to do crossover. If we're trying to capture this combat sports audience, which like combat sports, fastest growing sport, jiu-jitsu being the most accessible, then let's take a 10-point must system and make it like MMA rounds. So that way MMA fans can be like, 3 5-minute rounds, 10-point scoring, that makes sense. And they can see 2 guys getting in a pit going at it for submissions, just no striking. Like that would be like perceptually really easy to grasp. And then we added the element of open scoring because all jiu-jitsu athletes, as you guys know, we all competed, you're used to knowing where you're at. So you need to know the score. So like make it open scoring. And then that way, even the crossover fans start to learn the point system that is jiu-jitsu. So it would carry over to other organizations and other forms. Like, man, I still love ADCC rule set as a purist. But if for crossover fans, you need that kind of like no out of bounds, no resets, 3-5 sprint, like let's go at it. And so that's kind of how we did the format. And then we worked really hard with some really, great people to come up with the rules to make them really pushing action and aggressive nature. And, I'm seeing those rules being used now by the bigger organizations. They've taken our blueprint and they've, improved upon it. And that's like, another compliment to show that, what we set out to accomplish, change the sport, bring more eyes on the sport, and raise fighter pay, we've done. The biggest organization in the world is using a same pit, same format, similar rules, and pay has been raised across the board, from ADCC to Flo Grappling to 1FC, all the fighters pay, UFC BJJ, those guys, everyone's getting compensated more and more than before. And so it's like we accomplished what we set out to do. Now the mission is, hey, let's get all the fighters to unite to not be exclusive so that athletes have more opportunities to compete and we can really grow the sport. So by supporting CJI, you're supporting the growth of the sport because CJI, let's not forget, is run by the Fair Fight Foundation, and we're working with Guardian to build schools around the world for kids to train jiu-jitsu for free. So if you're having more people training the sport and you're supporting directly kids the ability to start training for free, then you have more competitors, more people invested, more families and fans watching. It's like pets, man. You want to watch your kids more than you want to take care of your dogs, right? Like you want more and more eyes on it. And that's what we're doing. We want to grow the sport, not just put it behind a paywall. And I feel like that's kind of a double-edged sword that Craig and I have with CJI, is that we've really stuck to our guns and we've turned down all the major organizations to put it behind their paywall. They see the product, they see the value, obviously see what Craig can do. Like I say, it's the Fantastic Four. It's Craig and I and 2 iPhones and like what we were able to accomplish. But, we've turned down putting it behind a paywall and putting it on YouTube for free so we could show how big jiu-jitsu is. We could show analytics to everyone because if you fight behind a paywall, you never know, even as an athlete. And we wanted to show how big the sport is, how many eyes are on the sport. But the issue with that is there's also fans that are like, oh, I'll just watch it on YouTube, not buy a ticket, not support the event. And I hope that we can, in this marketing campaign, encourage people, if you want to grow the sport, if you want to help support people to start training jiu-jitsu and help people like in underprivileged situations, then just buy a ticket even if you don't show up. If you can't make it to Vegas, if you can't fly out there, it's not in the bank to do, at least buy a ticket and support the event because you're supporting the raise of athletes pay and you're supporting the true growth of the sport because we're trying to grow the sport, not trying to grow views on a paywall. We're trying to grow the sport holistically for all athletes, and we want all athletes across all promotions to be able to come and compete at CJI, like the Super Bowl event, once a year. Maybe we do it twice a year. Maybe we start doing it once a quarter, but it's all going to come down to how much support we get from fans and sponsors alike.
Yeah, man, it's such amazing work you guys done. So on behalf of the community, well done, mate. Not that you need it, I'm sure you know the work you've done. But just in regard to the Fair Fight Foundation, so tell us a little bit more about that because I don't think I knew the extent of the work that you guys do through that foundation. And if people do want to support financially, is there like just giving page or is there another way that they can contribute financially without having to buy a ticket or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to fightfoundation.com. That's our, official Fair Fight Foundation website, and you can click the donate button on our CGI website as well. There's links to that. Buying a ticket is direct support. We have it in our YouTube descriptions for some of the content work we've done, but it was missed, CGI was actually what we wanted to use as the vehicle to launch the Fair Fight Foundation. But everyone got wrapped up in the event and the drama of the last year rivalry that kind of got missed, unfortunately. And we're trying to hammer it home, but, that's what it is. Sometimes you think, hey, heartstrings first and business second, but the reality of the world is it's business first and heartstrings last.
Yeah.
So Craig and I have both traveled the world and received a lot from jiu-jitsu. Like all of my relationships and even my business success tied to my travels and learning languages and learning cultures by training jiu-jitsu. Like it's a unique community. It's the only thing that I'm aware of that you can go anywhere in the world and you can go into a jiu-jitsu gym and not only will you be welcomed, you're going to have immediate access to authentic experiences and recommendations. So I can go to Bali and go in and start training, and I'm going to know the best food spots, the best club spots, the best beaches to go to. I can go to Dubai, and the next thing you know, I might buy in Zabil Palace with friends. You can go anywhere in the world. There's no race, religion, or social economic status when you're on the mat. Everyone's equal on the mat, and there's a lot of trust in jiu-jitsu. If you're going to go train full speed with someone and it's a universal signal and they do this, they stop. Like, it's special. It's a special community. And Craig and I had experienced that individually in our own different realms. And so we've been able to travel and take a lot from jiu-jitsu. And Craig is used to going everywhere, and people give him so much because he's there in his presence, and he wanted to give back. And I'm in the same way. I'm a little older and I have kids. And when we were out doing some content work in Indonesia, it's a well-known story and we put it out on CJI1, but we met Jeff Collins at Academy Christus. And it was a guy that, was an Aussie that moved out to Bali and started teaching kids jiu-jitsu on a tarp in these really impoverished communities. And he started building a community and then eventually built a school. And he's teaching these kids life skills. And these are kids with, serious, social economic challenges and some physical and, disabilities and things of that nature. And he just used jiu-jitsu to bring everyone in and kind of educate them and give them life skills so they can kind of go, because you don't have too many options when you're underprivileged in, Indonesia. It can be like a Gojek driver, like the equivalent of an Uber driver on a moped or a rickshaw, but there's not a lot of opportunities. And so he's a life of service. And so we went there and just started training, and we happened to go there and we met him and it was like, oh man, like, let's show the world like this access that you have to the jiu-jitsu community and how everyone's, connected and how you get to meet the people. We kind of talked about it as Craig would put, it's kind of like Scientology. If I came at you and I start talking about Planet Xeno, you're like, get the fuck out of here. But if I say Tom Cruise, John Travolta, you're like, I'm interested. So it's like, if you show the people that you can meet through the community, then people will be more engaged to go start training. I think that's why you see a lot of celebrities now and high level, people in the community are starting to train jiu-jitsu. It's just the access. So that was like the inspiration for us to start our own charity. So we went there, we helped sponsor a Christmas party and feed 300 families and, give time and give back there, and then raise money for them through CJI1. CJI1, we were able to raise like over $650K to charities within our jiu-jitsu community. And then we just wanted to kind of build on that and build more tangible things. So that's where we partnered with Guardian this year. And we've already started building schools, because it's like, oh, that's not just giving money. It's actually building a foundation that will live beyond me, will live beyond CJI. It'll be something that's sustainable and forever and create opportunities. But that's what we did it for. It was just like, hey, a way to give back, because we've received so much from jiu-jitsu. It's like, how can we give back in the jiu-jitsu community? And it was something that Craig and I had been doing well before CJI. And it was like, oh, this would be a great way to launch CJI, is like, we put in this Verify Foundation, because that's also a way to continue to travel and show content and these hero stories. And, like the kids training jiu-jitsu, man, we can check in on them in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And hopefully one of these people that we sponsor becomes a world champion. And it's all because of, our partnership with Guardian and Fair Fight. So that's kind of like the goal, of what we're doing on that front.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really amazing work, that, mate. That's really awesome. And obviously the traveling with Craig, we've seen the social media and he seems like a bit of a wild man. And you've obviously done a lot. You've met a lot of amazing people that you've just talked about. But I imagine there's probably been some scary moments, some hilarious moments. Like when you think back about those travels with Craig, what are some of the standout moments for you?
Man, I mean, there's a lot. We've been around the world together. I'm proud to say that we've never turned on each other. I can tell you that. It's come close. Don't get me wrong. We have our moments of going at each other, but we've never turned on each other. But man, I mean, there's just too much to tell. That's for a book later to be released to get paid or a movie. But, obviously, going into the Stans with Craig, I went there to compete with him in Kazakhstan. And then we went back, doing to showcase Kakapar, which is, I come from a background of ranching and horseback riding. But when you see 1,000 horses and these guys fighting to the death for gambling and money with a goat head like Rambo 3, And then doing that was one of the wildest things. And then you have Craig on top of it, going in a Coogie sweater, gold chains on a little pony. And they don't like the Borat theme, okay? So, like, there was some eyes of we were going to get murdered. Luckily, we had the best host possible that clearly explained, like, no, they're showcasing this. They're highlighting your country. They are not making fun of your country. But at first, I thought that might be a sticky situation where I'd have to turn my back and disappear in the shadows and leave Craig for dead. But it didn't turn out that way. Everybody knows the Ladyboy wake up. That was one to forget. And it's you never know. He keeps it light all the time. There's been some funny moments. The most recent one was actually in the UK trials when we were in London. Craig was going on this European tour, and he's going and is currently in Ukraine, to support his friends there. He's no better friend, no worse enemy than Craig, so he's a great friend. And so he was raising money to help his friends over there. And it's a scary situation when you're going into an active war zone, and Craig likes to push it. He wants to do things that no one will willingly do, that's him. And so we're having this like heartfelt goodbye, like I'm like, man, take care of yourself, be smart, keep me updated, like love you, brother. And then like I'm walking down the street real late at night, like just walking back to my Airbnb, like talking to our number one guy, Anthony, helps us with all things CJI and fair fight related. And I'm just like, man, I really hope Craig's safe. And 15 minutes later, he just comes and attacks me with the camera from the back and scares the shit out of me. He catches me screaming like a girl on camera, and he's like, gotcha. And then he's like, oh, and I'm like, man, I was just having a heartfelt moment about how I'm worried for you to do this shit, man. Maybe you get drowned. I don't care now. So,
I saw that when I was crying at that. That was good. That was a good one.
There's no coming back from that, man. I was like, why you gotta do me like that,
Especially in London of all places as well, mate. That's a very real possibility these days.
Yeah, and it's like, and he was in a hoodie, like a black hoodie, and he was crutched down. So like when I turned around, he's in all black and all dude, it just freaked me out, man. Yeah, so it's always exciting with Craig, but it's a 365, no time zones job. Like geographically, we have people all over the place supporting us. He's never stable. He's addicted to being on this nomadic adventure. So, there's no breaks from it. I'm on the phone with him trying to talk him out of going to Lebanon and Israel this week. Like, who has that for a business partner?
Keep him out of Iran, mate, won't you?
Yeah, keep him out of Iran.
Last weekend, he's FaceTiming me at 5 a.m. his time. He's on the rooftop in the most bombed city in Ukraine, butt naked, like, look at the drones, bro. And I'm like, aren't people in the bunker? He's like, I'm not missing this shot. I'm like, okay, dude, all right. Just let me know in the morning. And it's like, can I get a proof of life? And he's like, I'm alive, sadly. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. So, he keeps it light, he keeps it fun, but there's too much to tell. We'll have to sell that to someone later at a later date,
Mate, that's insane. I've often wondered, I've never met Craig, I've often wondered if he's just an absolute marketing genius, which I'm sure he is, but I've often wondered if the real Craig is far removed from the social media Craig, but it sounds like probably not.
Oh man, he's classic gonzo journalism, man. It's a mix of the real and unreal, but he is a social media master. He's a marketing guru. For sure. His love language is like satire and jokes. Craig is super funny, but like I said, he's a great human being. He is, no better friend. The guy does give back. He'll do anything, go to any extent. Just even the testament to like the Ukraine thing, going to do the biggest seminar in Kiev that they've ever had. And then the guys there be like, man, this is awesome. All my friends on the front lines wish they could be there. And Craig's natural instinct is going, can we go? I'll go to them. And they're like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, let's go. Like, why not? He's got Chileno tattooed on his chest, man. That guy's going to do whatever he wants to do and he feels is right to do, he will. And, yeah, man, he's a great human being, don't air that part, but
we'll just bleep that out, mate.
Just bleep that part out. No. He's great. And he's really passionate about the sport. All these things aside and the rivalries aside, Craig's main passion is to grow the sport and create opportunities for all athletes to live as pro athletes because they train and live like pro athletes. And he just truly wants to elevate the sport. And he believes by creating this kind of format, this kind of show, and pushing against exclusivity in this time to allow people from any organization to compete and do as many things as possible to earn money as an athlete, given there's not too many shows in town. He's really passionate about that. And so, his whole mission is just, how can I grow the sport and how can I help as many people on the come up to maybe have an easier road than he did? That guy was selling his car just to go compete, to maybe make it, that's where he came out with the marketing of buy my DVD, you know what I mean? So he is someone that is incredibly dedicated to helping grow this sport and create opportunities for people. And all jokes aside, that's like what he's really about. And, with the Fair Fight Foundation, that's not just something to do, it's not, there's a lot of companies out there and there's a lot of people out there that try to be, I'm holier than thou kind of things with charities. And Craig's the guy that's like, no, man, I'm a normal guy, but I do care about people and I want to give back to things. And you don't have to be, a holier than thou type of person to be involved in a community or support people that have rough times, So it's a testament to the kind of guy he is and the character he has. Like, I wouldn't be in business with him if he wasn't, So that's how it is.
Yeah, awesome. Absolute legend.
Class.
So let's chat about CJI too. So obviously we've got that coming up in, I think, August.
Yeah, August 30th and 31st, Las Vegas, Thomas and Mack Arena. Working with Craig, if I didn't have like Merrick Health sponsorship keeping me alive and Lucy Nicotine, I probably wouldn't be able to pull this shit off. But we're 65 days away. Not that I'm counting. And it's going to be an amazing show. This year, we worked with the quintet people. We felt like it was really hard to relive the magic of CJI 1, and Craig and I have high goals and expectations to grow the sport. So we wanted to do the team event. We did Quintet Tokyo as B team, and that was what really was like, we feel like is Craig's competed in quite a few, but it's the most exciting format. We thought that, the American-based audience, which is really the biggest one, right, for money in sports, really gets behind teams. And so it's like, how do we do a team aspect? And we also wanted to have room for the little guys, right? I'm a little guy, in CGI 1, it was under 88, over 88. So you didn't see too many 66ers that are going to go in there and cut that, to be that small and give that kind of weight advantage. But we really want to have an opportunity for the littler guys because it is like the most awesome expression of jiu-jitsu is some of the little guys out in the sport, right? Like the Fabricio Andres of the world, the Diego Patas, like, Ethan Krenliston, Owen Jones, man, like those guys are so exciting and awesome to watch. And so we wanted to have a place for those 66ers. So having a team element was something that we wanted to push and then get people behind the teams. And then also add a little layer of like WWE Royal Rumble style because it's like the mystery reveal, So you can put anybody out there. So that's where it makes it interesting where a little guy can go against a big guy. But if it's a double elimination, the little guy doesn't have to sub the big guy. He has to survive, right? But he can take them out strategically. And that's what gets people really invested. I know that when I was in Tokyo with the team and we were doing quintet, it's just like on pins and needles because on paper, you can look like you might be able to dominate another team. But the way the rules are with the double elimination, and you can just fight at the best level to not get subbed and take out another player, it really makes you invested in the outcome of the match and how the match goes. So I think this year's team event will be amazing. I think, little Royal Rumble-esque ideas that we'll unveil at the show will make it even more entertaining. So we want to make it a spectacle, it's like make it something that, again, tops the first one, which is a lofty goal, but also, we think we can do it. And then also the 2 16-man brackets, from a production standpoint, that's a long day, man. I'm a jiu-jitsu fan, but when you have one pit and one arena, that was a 14-hour day on day one. And I don't care how much you love jiu-jitsu, 14 hours in one seat watching is a tough ask for the fans. So now we've kind of structured it to be like two kind of like, 5 to 6 hour shows on a Saturday, Sunday, ending on the, IBJJF Worlds weekend. So it's Masters Worlds Tuesday through Saturday. It ends. It's the ultimate bro fest for jiu-jitsu. There's Jiu-Jitsu Con. You go out there for IBJJF Worlds, and then you can go see CJI 2, which is like the greatest event in jiu-jitsu. So, the numbers speak for itself. I don't need to sell it. It's quite an event. There's a lot of casuals there that were last year that, like you said earlier, you can finally show someone a jiu-jitsu match. You can show them the Tackett versus Cade Rotolo, those guys did us the greatest favor ever. So when someone asks me, what's jiu-jitsu? And I show them that match, you're like, fuck, man, you're a savage. That's elite. It's not two guys in pajamas doing grip fighting or fighting for a toe hold advantage. You know what I mean? Like, that's the greatest service that we gave to the community, is that you can actually point to those matches and be like, that's what I do. And then people are like, wow, that's cool, you know?
I think the biggest thing, mate, is my wife watched CJI and she doesn't have any interest in grappling at all. She doesn't really understand it, but she sat there and pretty much watched the whole thing with me over when it was on.
Yeah.
And she actually loved it. So like she was saying the other day, they were talking down at our gym about CGI, and she actually like chirped in and was talking about that match with Tackett and Cade.
That's
and
awesome.
now she has, like, I'm a guard puller, and she constantly calls me a pussy now because she's like, you're just a fucking dirty guard
she's
puller.
right. She's right.
She is right. Yeah, she is right. But like, she always uses that as an example of just like, yeah, you're just a pussy. Look at them. They're just scrapping. Now she's like, that's a fight. That's a fight.
It's funny. You know, I've been in jiu-jitsu for so long, and my wife, the same thing. Never came to a competition, could care less, could watch it, and actually watched CJI, you know, at home, and was like so excited about the match. And that was a cool moment, not just for me personally, but then also friends of my age that have no interest in training and are training just tuned in to say like, oh, I want to support your thing. I want to check out what you're doing. And then we're like, holy shit, like, can I come? Like, I want to go next year. Or like, you know, it was nice, man. There was a lot of people that came to day one. They were like, hey, Seth, can you get me in day two? That was sick. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Let's go. You know, so
yeah, that's amazing.
I think it's going to be even more exciting this year. The team event's great.
I think those types of things are the biggest compliment to your competition. You know, just regular people, like, especially my wife who literally hates grappling, like really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. And like the biggest compliment now is that to see, like, you know, the biggest organization in the world is using our model. And that's like, you know, tip the hat or not, that's the biggest compliment, man. Like, again, we accomplished what we set out to do, is change the sport and create a format that would capture, you know, casual fans and create crossover and truly grow the sport and elevate athlete pay. So for me, I'm like, man, this is all gravy on top. And then now with a more tangible focus that people know that it's going to the Guardian and Fair Fight Foundation to build these schools, which we're going to show the content. We're like building an amazing facility in Mancor, Peru right now. It's going to house like 300 kids will be able to train. There's community center. They'll learn English. Like, it's sustainable. It's on a beach community. Like, it's going to be the model. There's Airbnbs that are connected to it. So fans, donors, athletes can go down there and train and participate with these kids. And that's just step one of a long roadmap of other schools we're going to be building around the world. So for me, this is all gravy now, man. Like, you know, it's, so cool. We're winning no matter what. Like, everywhere we turn, we're winning on it. And I just want the fans to, you know, continue to support us and support the endeavor to support athletes in the growth of jiu-jitsu. That's the only thing that I focus on, is like, how can we grow the sport even bigger and better?
Yeah, man, that's cool. And obviously with the squads, obviously comes the, I guess, the story arc around the different teams and the trials and everything as well. And that's been really fun to watch. Before we've even had the event, we've had obviously the Giles trials, and then we've had the Ural trials as well. And obviously you were there in person in London, getting scared to death. Both probably at the trials and after, from what you said.
Oh, dude. For sure.
But obviously we had Faris on recently, and you know, we had a chat with him because it was quite a controversial event, the Urals one. It was a bit chaotic. It looked like a little bit of a fight club, which, depending on who you are, was either a really good thing or maybe a little bit of a bad thing. I mean, being there in person and obviously being sort of involved in the event in the position that you are, how did you feel about that event?
To be honest, man, I loved it. I thought that Faris and Owen did an outstanding job. Like, you know, the Grapple Club, the media team that we hired to produce it were top-notch elite. Like, they did it so well. Los Banditos, like, the environment there was super cool. You know, Craig and I wanted to give freedom to the coaches. Like, hey, it's your team. If you want to run a trials, cool. You know, Giles went full Giles and created a pit. Followed it, had his own, you know, gauntlet row of how you were going to enter and win that team, and like, mad respect for the thought and the position and the way he did that. And then the same thing with Faris. It was like kind of taking our boy Dan Hooker's model of like king of the street thing, you know, that wild, chaotic environment, like everyone around you, like Fight Club-esque type thing, which is definitely like UK vibes, you know, everyone's drinking, everyone is like getting, you know, taking a piss. It was fucking awesome, you know, so did it get scary a little bit? Yeah, for sure. My boy Linus that comes in, one of Dima's athletes that comes and trains with us. Man, they went on a thing, and I was having Midnight Express flashbacks. I thought the coat hanger was going to go back in the guy's skull. Like, he's like, boom. I mean, I was just like, oh, my God. And they're looking at me like, Seth, you're going to get sued. I'm like, me get sued? I'm on the plane. Get the fuck out of here, brother. This is on you. I have nothing to do with this. I'm a spectator, So I thought it was outstanding. Hey, is there a controversy? Yeah, I didn't even realize that Paul Ardilla was in it until I stepped off the plane in London. And I'm like, wait a second, man. You know what I mean? So we let them do how they wanted to do it. And, testament to Ferris and Owen Jones for putting that together. Man, they made it seamless, easy. The content team, like, again, Grub Club could have done a better job. And I loved it. It was wild, man. I mean, it was wild. Obviously, if you saw the thing, I was going for more finishes, but, that's just kind of the nature of the game when you have the best guys going at it. It's sometimes hard to get a finish, but the environment was super cool. Everyone was super welcoming and fun. I thought they did an outstanding job. The rule change, man, that's on them. You know what I mean? Anytime you change something last minute, you have problems. And I know because I was put in that position at CJI 1. When Cade and Tackett were done, and the whole stadium was going, one more round. Craig pulls me. He's like, it's our production. We should do it. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. You can't change the rules, And, we were a little loose too. So I was like, oh man, do we or not do it? And I was like, no, you got to stick to your guns and on that decision. And that's just how it goes. So if anytime you make a change, there's going to be controversy. But at the end of the day, both guys are in it. So it's all good in my perspective. And, again, I can't say enough good things about working with Ferris and then Owen Jones. He helped quarterback that whole thing and put it together in a Los Banditos squad. Like, they made it a vibe. It was definitely chaos in there, and it was fun, and just
it looked amazing, doesn't it?
Freddie just judging next to me, man. I was fucking more scared of him than the crowd, dude. So it was a good time, man. I really
he's one scary motherfucker, isn't he?
Oh yeah,
Fred, he's a big boy, isn't he?
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he's ledge.
Yeah, mate. It was funny. Obviously, there was the issue, like you say, with Taylor and Paul Ardilla, and obviously Paul coming in as a wild card from the States. And obviously yesterday we found out that now Taylor's in the Americas team. So we've had a little bit of a switcheroo where you've got an American in our team at 88, and obviously Taylor's in that team now. So
man, that's so funny, isn't it? Do you know what? I love a bit of controversy like this though, because the English, I know it's European, but a lot of the English fans felt like it should have been, just pretty much a Los Banditos team, really. You know what I mean? Because that would have been probably the strongest team. If we're all being honest, that would have been really good, wouldn't it? If you had Owen Jones, Shazinski got injured though, didn't he, at 77? But even if you had Taylor at 77, Ono Flanagan at 88, Negromonte, and then we just got him one big wild card, like just some massive fucker just to get him in. But that team would have been ridiculous. That would have been such a good team. That would have been a competitive team to win, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was, the original thought and what we obviously when we did the team event, it was 8 teams. We didn't feel that there was 8 actually established teams that could fill it. There's just we wanted to create those opportunities. So that's where Craig was like, hey, we need to do some misfit teams. And originally it was going to be 6 teams and 2. And then it came to 5 and 3. So we could have Asia Pac, Euro, and then the Americas, right?
Yeah.
But the Europe team all along was we were going to have Shazinski as, team captain. He's the boogeyman, man.
Really? Yeah.
He's the fucking boogeyman. That guy came to the B team room back in the day and he took foots from everybody, just boom, 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 boom. We were like, hey man, teach this class because this is insane. And hey, maybe pump the brakes because we know you can break everyone's foot. Let's be cool in the room. But dude, he's an outstanding athlete and a finisher nonetheless. And that's what you want in this rule set. So it was a real bummer when he got injured and then we're going to have him out. And the same thing with Tommy Langlacker. He had to have a surgery too and he couldn't be there. And we really wanted to support the athletes that supported us in CGI 1. So if you came on board at CGI 1, you were automatically, we wanted to kind of if we could in some kind of way encourage teams to take you or create the team in that region around you, it just makes sense, right? You support the people that supported you in the initial endeavor. And Langlacker came over, Owen Lively came over. So when Mateus got injured and Langlacker got injured, and then, you know, the trials structure didn't jive, or, you know, Owen just didn't want to do that for whatever reason. And it was all cool. He came and supported the event and he was there. It just kind of shook out the way it did, you know, but it's just unfortunate due to injuries, but that's the nature of the sport. When you're trying to break each other, people get injured, you know. It's just unfortunate. Even Freddie, we wanted Freddie to be involved, but he had to have a surgery to kind of propel his MMA career. So he kind of missed out on that opportunity to compete as well. So it's like, you know, these are just nature of the beast, you know. But I agree with you. Like, that team would have been sick, you know. It all started. The first domino fell when Shizinski got hurt, because I was like, no, we were planning, because that's a guy that could literally go out and sub anybody in any way. He could wreck a whole team, like, for sure.
Nice. It is so good. But like you said, it gives opportunities to other people, and this is how stars are made, really, innit? You know, they got young Pavel and stuff like that. He's really good. They're going to come out there if they do well. You know, again, he could sub people, mate. He's really good.
And like, win, lose, or draw, it's going out there and performing on the biggest stage with the most eyes. We're not behind the paywall, man. You're going to have more views than ever. We did 3.2 million views last time and 70 million impressions on a competitive weekend against ADCC and UFC Perth. So it's conservative to say that you're going to get 2x the views that you got last time. So you're going to have massive exposure. And as an athlete, all you got to go out there and do is perform. You know, like, look at the face of the organization, Craig. He's made a huge career and a huge market about being second place. You know what I mean? It's just going out there and have a star-studded performance, and win, lose, or draw, you can make a name for yourself and increase your value. And you're also getting compensated. Like, everyone gets $10,002 to show up. You know, it was $10,001 for CJI one. We believe to increase rates, to evolve the pay. So it's $10,002 to every competitor to show up and compete this year. So, you know, you have an opportunity to get a good payday, be on a massive stage, and in a great environment, and kind of make your name.
Yeah, it's really cool. Tell us about the involvement with Flo Grappling, mate, because obviously you've kept it free to see, which is great. But obviously Flo Grappling historically are a paywall platform. So how are they involved with the event this time?
They're not directly involved with CJI. We have a content partnership with Flo Grappling to promote grappling on a different level. They are not involved with CJI. You know, CJI is going to remain live and free on YouTube. They're not an official sponsor of CJI. They are just a separate thing that Craig and I worked out with them because they have similar goals. They want to create open opportunities for athletes that can be not exclusive, that their athletes, they'll allow to do CJI. They'll allow them to compete anywhere and everywhere. I think they have a real good understanding that the sport's not there yet, where there's not enough shows, and it's extreme value to any organization that the fans are going to follow the athlete, right? So if that athlete is competing on all the other platforms, when it comes back to their platform, they're getting those fans. So we wanted to partner and work with them. And then obviously, you know, they were on the other side, you know, they had the ADCC contract and deal. And, you know, there was a rivalry last year, and we by no means wanted to make the fans choose. You know, it was like athletes had to choose at that point, but it's like, hey, I still want ADCC to survive and thrive. I'm a purist. I love ADCC. The Stuart Cooper highlight reel got me excited about no-gi jiu-jitsu when I was younger, right? So we want ADCC to thrive. And then the W&O events, they put on great events, and they support a lot of B-team athletes and athletes that competed at CJI. And again, our whole thing is, how do we grow the sport, promote the sport, and help? And so we saw that we could add value in a marketing capacity and show them, hey, we can do some little tricks. We can kind of help, you know, our athlete community, our athletes even under B team, put on your shows and kind of promote and, like, you know, make Flo cool again. You know, they got kind of you know, they had some struggles last year. And so we wanted to kind of, like, you know, restart. You know, the first one was about a disruptor event. Clearly, like, CGI 1 was a disruptor event. There was that rivalry. CGI 2 now is about uniting grappling. It's about elevating everyone. I don't want a rivalry with anyone. We're all in the same business. We're trying to grow the sport and build it up as big as possible. We just don't want to put our event behind a paywall, and we don't want to make people exclusive where they can't compete for other organizations and they're able to do our event. Again, we are really just trying to elevate the sport and give money to an amazing cause to let people train for free with the Guardian Project and Fair Fight Foundation. So for us, that's what it was. And it was just we're working with Flo to do that. So it's, maybe there's a future state where Flo is doing a CJI Invitational. Maybe it's a trials to earn a spot on the Super Bowl of grappling the next year. Maybe there's an opportunity for some other content ideas to kind of grow the sport or do what Craig and I want to do as well as, travel around the world and compete in other grappling arts. Like, hey man, it'd be cool to go to Senegal and have Craig in the stadium, doing sand wrestling. Those things would be exciting and create crossover and intrigue. He's kind of like the Anthony Bourdain of jiu-jitsu, man. The guy's willing to go anywhere and show culture and experience and give back. And so, we're just kind of like trying to work together and create more marketing that kind of hits a broader scope of people and creates crossover. And that's the goal there. So there's no confusion. I saw some people when we did some of the initial Flow content were like, oh man, and now it's behind the paywall. And it's like, no. CGI is still live and free on YouTube, but support our event, like if you really like your athletes and you really like to support them, you should subscribe or buy a ticket to any event that they're competing on. Like, to be honest, like if you're really that passionate about jiu-jitsu and you want to help the athletes and you're a true fan, it's like you should go do it. It's like stealing music is what I used to say. I used to steal all the music back in the day. And one of my mentors in business is like, Seth, you don't want to support the artists that you like. You don't want to pay $10 to buy their album and actually support them. And I was like, oh, I didn't think of it like that. I was like, what about me? So now I think about giving back and supporting. So like, if you want to support your athlete, go buy a ticket and go to the show, or, subscribe to the paywall service that hosts the event, and support the event. That's the only way the sport grows. It's like, we can't always do it live and free on YouTube, but CGI, we will. Yeah,
sick, man. And just to finish up, you obviously mentioned this year, it's about uniting and removing those exclusive contracts and that type of thing. We've kind of brushed on it a couple of times, but obviously the UFC are now involved in the game, and obviously paying you the biggest compliment, like you say, by copying a lot of what you've done. And then there seems to be a lot of talk about the exclusive contracts and them obviously tying up certain athletes, which is disappointing for the fans for sure, because we'd love to see them in the event. Is there much else resistance from other organizations around exclusivity? And, are you optimistic about overcoming that barrier, or do you think that's just how it's going to be with that particular organization?
I'm an eternal optimist, man. So I don't see barriers. I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can things calm down and we all come to a head. But to be honest, all other main organizations that are in the space support our event. So that's where you had like Rotolos, you had people from ONE FC, any Flow athlete can compete at CJI. UFC BJJ is the only one that is not doing or not allowing certain athletes as of right now to come and do CJI. And they're doing their exclusive contract kind of thing. I'm hopeful that, they'll come to the agreement or the understanding that, hey, we're all doing the same thing. We're just trying to grow the sport, and to allow their athletes to come over would be great. Fortunately for us, and I'll just pat myself on the back, is that we kind of saw this coming from CGI 1. And so we were really quick to sign a lot of the athletes prior. So a lot of the athletes were already signed until, before UFC BJJ and their whole competition came about. So, unfortunately, there's some key athletes that we would want, like, who wouldn't want to see Andrew Tackett compete again in CGI? Like, I would love to see both William and Andrew, but I also support them in their decision to go over there and compete on that platform. Like, again, I'm a fan. I'm drama free, man. I just want to grow the sport, but I'm hoping there comes to be a place where there's mutual respect and they understand, like, hey, we're a Super Bowl event. I'm not trying to do a league. I'm not trying to do a show a month and compete. I want to coexist. But hey, man, if you want to compete, we've proven that we can do it, and we're going to continue to go forward and show the team event is the way to go with our event this year, and with the athletes that we already have on board and some to be announced. we got the best guys in the world competing. We want anyone and everyone that's at the highest level to be able to come in and showcase their art and perform on the biggest stage and on an open platform. So I'm hopeful that maybe that'll come, but you never know, man. I mean, there's been some tactics that are, making it a challenge for us, but hopefully at the end of the day, people realize like, hey, supporting our event is, like I've said, you're supporting the growth of Jiu-Jitsu and you're supporting the project that we're doing with Guardian, which is about kids and giving people the opportunity to train Jiu-Jitsu for free around the world. And that's more important than just, putting it behind a paywall or getting some more views, So that's my mission. That's my focus. And I'm just going to continue to keep marching on that kind of path. And I just hope that, when the dust settles, that people see that and they support that, or that organizations realize that it's not going to diminish the product or the value of their champion if they come over and compete at CJI and happen to lose. Like, it's grappling, it's like MMA. You can have losses, some of the best UFC champions in MMA have like a 20-12 record, right? And they're the greatest of all time, like you can have that. Obviously undefeated goes the best. Everyone likes that, but it's about performing, and so if you go out there and you're exciting and you do something special, you're going to garner fans and you're going to make a way for yourself. And I just want to support that endeavor. So I'm not trying to get up in controversy or conflict. That's not my role. My role is just to execute and make sure that we create opportunities for people around the world and put on the best event. And that's what I'm focused on.
Amazing, mate.
Yeah, keep up the good work, man. Seth, any final words before we let you go, mate?
Well, the man, the myth, the legend, Craig Jones is returning from overseas. He is imminently coming to America in the 1st of July. And so if you go on CJI2.com, you can register your gym. He's doing a grassroots campaign. He's going to be going across the country, stopping at gyms all around the United States, promoting CJI and giving seminars. So if you're interested, you want your gym, you want Craig to stop by, you want to earn your place to get tickets and be a part of CJI2, just go to CJI2.com. He's taking applications and he's going to be going around the world, around the US, I'd rather, to kind of promote this show. So if you want to be considered and you want him to stop by your gym, any and all are welcome. Just go to CJI2.com and just put in your gym.
Yeah, nice.
I just want to say, hey, thanks for having us. Thanks for having me, I should say, on and allowing me to kind of give my take on CJI and, all things with the Fair Fight Foundation. And the last thing I would say is, what I've said 100 times over, just beat a dead horse here, is if you want to support us, even if you can't make it to Vegas, buy a ticket, go to fightfoundation.com, make a donation, help support us to be able to promote these events with the paydays that we do, and help give money to these charitable causes in our partnership with Guardian. Those endeavors go a long way, and that's going to make this sustainable so that we can continue to do this and perhaps do it more often. We still want to be a Super Bowl event, but I would say, there's room for 2 or 3 a year, not just one. But we got to get through each one and keep kind of proving our model to be able to do that. So just please support. It's about helping the athletes. And if you're a fan, tune in. That's all I ask.
Nice, man. Well, we know you're a busy guy, mate, so we appreciate your time and everything you do, mate. Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Thank you very much,
Appreciate you
mate.
guys. Thanks so much. Cheers.